Hi, my name is Beth, and you're listening to the Canna Fitness and Nutrition Podcast, where we are hanging out at the intersection of fitness, nutrition, and cannabis. Thank you so much for pressing play today. I'm super excited that you're here. And if you're new here, I'm Beth, your personal trainer and cannabis educator. If you're not new, thanks for coming back. It means that you are interested in cannabis, fitness, and nutrition and how they all work together. And today I'm going to tell you kind of my secret sauce for everything I teach in cannabis, mindful eating, mindful movement, intentional cannabis use. It's the one thing that helps you go from a bad habit to a better habit. It's the one thing that helps you make that better decision when you're trying to lose weight and you feel like you're stuck in a bad habit, like you're not able to get up and go work out. Or you want to be going for a walk in the afternoon, but you sit and watch TV instead. Or if we're talking about eating and you are trying to make a better choice at night, right? Maybe you do struggle with the munchies and you really wish that instead of picking chips, you picked an apple and peanut butter, but you can't make yourself choose the apple and peanut butter because you always choose the chips and you just get frustrated because you'd like to lose weight. Chances are, if you're listening to this, you have fitness goals of some sort, or maybe you're working on them already. Maybe you do go to the gym and maybe you're in the process of losing weight, or maybe you did and now you're just managing it. And I think especially for those of us that do really care about, our physique and do work out consistently and do want to feel good about ourselves in a tank top and a bathing suit this summer, it can be really frustrating when you feel like you don't have control. And sometimes when you use cannabis, it can make it feel like that. And I get that. And a lot of times, and this tool that I'm going to talk about can help you with that as well, because it can help you not use too much THC or anything, really. It can help you not drink too much. The tool I'm talking about is the pause. The pause, P-A-U-S-E, the pause. This is really the foundation of mindfulness. I've tried not to use that word a lot lately because I feel like when I say mindfulness or mindful eating or mindful consumption or mindful movement, people kind of look at me with that look like, this is getting woo-woo. And I'm a little woo, but I'm not completely woo. And I recognize that mindfulness sounds so boring. But all it is really mindfulness is just a word for taking a pause. Because here's the background. Here's the neuroscience of it. Your brain's job is to help you do the same thing over and over again. It likes repetition. It likes structure. It likes to do the same thing day in, day out. In fact, if your brain had its way, it would do the exact same thing every day because it's easy. It's automatic. It's your brain trying to create the path of least resistance, trying to do the least amount of work. It's your brain doing its job. Because it's that way, it could conserve energy for the other more important things that it's going to do, the thinking you have to do, the problem solving you have to do. So your brain, when it comes to your routine, and even when it comes to what you're eating and your workout routine, it loves to do the same thing over and over again, which is why when you're stuck in a pattern of choosing the chips instead of the apple and peanut butter, your brain is always going to offer you the chips. Part of that is because chips are salty and your brain it also loves salt. Your brain loves salt, fat, and sugar. But your brain really loves to do the same thing it always does. So of course, even if you want to have the apple and peanut butter and you say to yourself, next time I'm going to have an apple and peanut butter instead of these chips, your brain next time is still going to offer you those chips first, because it likes to do what you always do. And this is just basic neuroscience. If you're interested, totally do go down a rabbit hole and look into this because it's fascinating. But for our purpose, that's all you need to know. You just need to know that your brain is getting you to do the same thing you always do. So the pause. What the pause is for. The pause is for interrupting that brain cycle. It's for interrupting the automation that your brain has created. It only takes a second. I mean, it can take a minute if you wanted to. It can take a moment. It can take 30 seconds. It's as long as you need. It doesn't have to take long, but it has to be long enough for you to talk back to your brain and realize that brain, okay, you're telling me to do the thing I always do. But now that you know that, you can't unknow that. So now you can talk back to it and say, no, brain, you're just telling me to do what I always do. I want to lose weight. I'm going to choose the apple, right? And the peanut butter, because that is more nutrient dense and it's satisfying, right? What you have to do in the pause is you have to talk back to your brain. And then you have to check in with your body, because oftentimes the solution is in your body. It's not in your brain. And I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. And here's a couple things you can try. For me, it really started to happen when I was an overeater and I was a stress eater, emotional eater. And every time I felt anything, I would just eat because that made me feel better. You know, I felt uncomfortable. I felt nervous. I felt anxious. I felt lonely. I felt depressed. I felt anything. I would eat, make me feel better, right? Automatic. My brain was like, oh, you're having a feeling. Better go get some M&Ms, or you better go get a pizza because this is uncomfortable. And that's how I dealt with it. When I learned mindfulness and started to understand this principle, I was able to say, wait a second. I'm having a feeling. My brain is telling me to do the thing I always do, but let me check in with the rest of my body. And I started to check in with my stomach, and my stomach was like, wait a sec, I'm not even hungry. And then I started to say, okay, well, is there anything else I can do to make myself feel better in this moment that I'm uncomfortable right now, lonely, scared, anxious, depressed? And I started to ask it questions like, hey, legs, you want to go for a walk? And they would say, sure. And then we would just go for a walk and then I would feel better. And then that created a new habit. And slowly over time, because this is a skill, right? A skill is like playing the piano or learning how to play pickleball. You're not good at it at first, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I started to create new patterns around my emotional eating. And then I realized that you could do it with any habit. And I started to translate it for my clients in the gym, my personal training clients, right? When you have okay, I really want to go for a walk at 4:00 every day, right? Maybe after work, right? Or at the end of the day, I want to go for a walk, but you don't now. So it's really hard to get your brain to make that switch because you currently don't do that. And your brain wants to do what you normally do, which is not go for a walk. So in order for you to go for a walk, you have to take extra steps. You have to take a pause. And you have to go ahead and let that play out between your brain and your body. You have to let that play out in terms of your brain going, nah, no, we like sitting better. Well, we like sitting. Remember, there's a show on at 4:00 that we like to watch that you're not going to watch because you're going to be on a walk. And then you have to tap into that side of you that does want to lose 5 pounds and knows that if you start to go for a walk every day at 4, you're going to be more physically active. You're going to feel good. You're going to burn calories. You're going to work. You're going to activate muscle. And that's the fight you have to have with your brain. And you have to talk to your body and say, do you feel like moving around today? And you have to talk to your legs, and legs have to say, yeah, sure, we're good, we're game, right? And that's how you make the habit happen. You have to plan a little bit. In the pause, you have to say, okay, what else can I do to make myself go? I know my brain is trying to stop me. What else can I do? And you have to tap into things like how you feel when you're done. You have to almost like future cast, like predict how and if you do it once, it makes it a lot easier. Once you do it one time, it gets a lot easier because now you can use what happened that one time as fuel to talk back to your brain. And you can say, oh, remember yesterday when we put on our shoes and went for a walk and 15 minutes later we came back and felt fantastic, right? Maybe you felt that blood flow. Maybe you felt an increase in energy. Maybe it put a smile on your face. That's what you have to remember now. And so you can tap back into that and go ahead and fight your brain between how good you felt and the fact that it wants to do what it always does, right? So you can kind of see how this skill can translate to any habit you want to change. When it comes to mindful cannabis consumption, it's really easy. I've definitely found myself just puffing along because it's a little bit of just kind of a hand to mouth habit of just puffing, putting it down, picking it back up, puffing. But what I do now is I've caught myself doing that. And now I say, because my brain wants to, right? I say, wait a second, pause. What do I need? Have I enjoyed what I got out of my last puff, right? Have I actually sat and enjoyed that moment and how that feels in my body? Have I let myself relax? Or is this just a reflex? What am I doing? Again, my brain is going, just do it again. Just do it again. That's what you always do. But I need to check in with my body and say, wait a second. I'm actually feeling really good right now. I'm relaxed. My breathing just relaxed. I can feel a little bit of a buzz, or wherever it is that you like to be in that spectrum. And I don't need it now. And so you can put it back down and you can manage your hand and say, no hand, keep it away. Just relax. Do something else to occupy yourself. So this is how we use the pause. Again, I'm talking a lot about the munchies lately. This is definitely a skill that we teach inside the Munchie Makeover because this helps you bridge from I always choose chips to, oh, now I choose peanut butter and an apple, into a more nutrient-dense option. And this is really the skill that I teach in every coaching program I have because when I work with people on establishing and, regulating healthy habits, this is key. This is key. And it is not simple the first time you do it. Again, it's like learning how to play pickleball or learning how to play the piano. But the more you do it, the easier it gets and it just becomes a skill. So you do have to want to practice the skill. And I think a lot of times it's really easy to get impatient. And it does take patience, but it's also a skill that once you learn it, you'll never go back. You'll never go back to automation because that's what's causing you to be 5 pounds heavier. That's what's causing you to sit on the couch instead of going to work out, right? That's what's causing you to do that. And that can be hard. Now, the cool thing is if you're a cannabis user, which you probably are because you're listening to this, is that cannabis, especially CBD and CBG, and low-dose THC, can make it easier for you to adapt to new skills. It has what's called neuroprotective benefits, which means that neuroplasticity benefits, I'll say, which means that your brain has an easier time trying new things. It's easier to adapt. And